Thanks for tuning into our podcast. We love having you here, and it's our mission to bring you all the latest and greatest tips, skills, and know-how to make you the best that you can be. We know that you have it in you, and we're going to show you how. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to the Parafair today. And this story is called You Can't Buy Class. So as we listen to our stories, we come back and we talk about some things that were confusing to me, with some things that stood out and some things that we agree with the story that has no class. You can't buy class. We'll be right back in a few minutes. Enjoy the story. Be right back.
The last delivery. There was a rich couple who was throwing a big New Year party at their house. So they went shopping at the market where everything was of high cost and fixed price. They wanted to maintain their level of standard, so didn't mind paying for it. After purchasing all they needed, they called a porter to carry everything and drop it at their home. The porter who came was of an old age, not very healthy looking. His clothes were torn, looked as if he wasn't even able to meet his daily needs. They asked the porter about the charges for delivering their goods at their home. The old porter quoted just $20, well below the market rate for delivering goods at couple's home in his cart. Yet, the couple argued and bargained with the porter and finally settled for $15. The porter was struggling to make even one-time meals, so he needed anything he can earn. The couple was very happy, thinking how well they bargained with the poor porter, and paid him $15 in advance and left after giving the porter their address for delivery. They reached their home and 2 hours passed, but the porter still hadn't delivered their stuff. The wife started to get angry at her husband. "I always tell you not to trust such person still. You never listen to me. Such person who is not even able to earn to feed himself for one time in a day. You handed him everything we purchased for our big party. I am sure instead of delivering at our home, he must have disappeared with everything. We must immediately go back to the market to inquire and then to the police station to file the complaint against him." They both left towards the market. On their way near the market, they saw another porter. They stopped him to inquire about the old porter and noticed that he was carrying their stuff in his cart. The angry wife asked him, "Where is that old thief? This is our stuff and he's supposed to deliver it. It seems you poor thieves are stealing our stuff and going to sell it." The porter replied, "Madam, please calm down. That poor old man was sick since last month. He wasn't able to earn enough to even have a single meal of the day. He was on the way to deliver your stuff, but he who was hungry, sick, couldn't gather the strength to go any further in this heat of the noon. He fell down and while handing me $15, his last words were, 'I had taken an advance for this delivery, you take this and please deliver to this address.' Madame, he was hungry, he was poor, but he was an honest man. I was just on the way to complete old man's last delivery at your home," the porter said. Upon hearing this, the husband had tears in his eyes, but the wife felt so ashamed, she had no courage to see up in her husband's eyes. Moral: honesty has no class. Respect everyone regardless of their financial and social status. It's always a good deed to give the one who deserves.
Welcome back from our story. Interesting story about class and how some people get treated in this world. How you just, and as I look at this, and I agree with the moral, you just can't buy class. As I look at the porter who was, struggling, trying to just make ends meet, and you have these people who are well-to-do, and instead of, as the one guy, he really want to give him $25 or $20 and bargain the guy down to $15. Just little things like that. How some people, no matter how much they make, they're always trying to get over on someone. I had this situation yesterday. This person was complaining about some of the prices that we had. That we made a price adjustment. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. We made a price adjustment in some of the items. And it wasn't much. It was like a quarter or something like that. It wasn't much, but they were like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you went up a quarter." And I was like, "Really?" And then I looked out in the parking lot, and they're driving a high-end vehicle, like over $100,000 car, but they're complaining about a 25 cent increase in a product that they that they need. They don't need that high-end vehicle, but they're going to try to maneuver you down and tell you, oh, you're a bad person and this and this and that. But on the other end, they're driving around in this high-end vehicle, just sucking up all the gas and killing the environment, but it's okay. And as I look and I was like, shook my head. I said, it's amazing how sometimes these stories that I do on the podcast, they come to life, and I have people every day. They right on cue, whatever I'm talking about. They just give me more content to talk about on the podcast. And I was like, wow, I can't believe how some of these people are, and they were very upset that there was an increase. And I understand, the thing is about our business, it's a consistent business, and so when you come back the next day, you're like, hey, what happened here? What's going on here? But then again, you have to realize there's I have people to pay. I have other things I have to do. I have repairs, but people don't understand that. All they think about is themselves sometimes. And I think that's what happens in our story here is those people, they didn't really care about they said, look at this guy, they just look at this guy's a mess. He can't do anything for us, but we're going to, we instead of paying him $20 or $25, let's get him down to 15 or 10, whatever we can do to get our stuff delivered to our house. They don't care. And that's what happens a lot of times in life. We think that, certain people, just aren't to our level. And as I watch this story and I listen to this story and I think about how I'm treating some people, myself, how I'm treating people lately with our Instagram account, I am just going through and I'm doing this little test with myself. We're up to about 1,300 followers on Instagram, and it's doing fine. And we're continually adding, and we're listening, and we're reaching out, and we're trying to do certain things with certain people. But I have to make sure that if a person doesn't have, and this is the thing about Instagram, is so you look at how many followers you have and how many people are following you, and you can get in that trap. And you just realize everyone's the same, and you go like, oh, such and such is following me. Just worry about putting out good content, doing a good job, helping people. That's why you started the podcast. You didn't start the podcast for 1 million followers. You didn't start the podcast so that you can be famous. You started out so that you can help people. And the reason why I started it out, I was always getting people say, you know what, you really give good advice, but I don't see you that often, and I need someone to remind me of giving some good advice about some things. So I said, that's why you started the podcast. You didn't start the podcast because you just want 1 million followers. It's going to be nice when we get there, but that's not the goal. That's not the goal. And sometimes we realize we start looking down on people. So sometimes as I'm going through the Instagram accounts, and I have to catch myself, I go, don't compare yourself with someone else. Don't compare yourself with someone else who's just, they don't have they have more followers than you. They have a lot more followers, or they don't have as many followers as you. Don't compare yourself. Just run your own race and do your own thing. Don't compare yourself with other people. I think that's what happens a lot. We can, like the story, the people compare themselves to the poor little porter who was just sitting there, just doing his own thing, barely making it, and they're, comparing him. I know recently I had to help someone fix something on their car or whatever, and as I looked at the person's situation, and I was just talking to myself, and I said, why me? Why did I need to help this person? And I said, get off your high horse. Don't worry about where you are and what you have and how many degrees you have. You said you can't buy some of the knowledge that you have, and some people, I heard this all the time, you can tell people how great you are until you actually do something and show people. That's what's going to show you. I can tell you how great I am and this and that, but if I don't actually go out and prove it day in and day out, it doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter what I say, what I do, but I have to go out every day and prove myself. I heard some people always say you can walk it, but you can't talk it. And I hear people all the time. And recently I was on the live stream and I was looking at some stocks, and what happens, one of these stocks was a company in Canada, and they do fine jewelry and, just earrings, diamonds, whatever they do. That's what their specialty was. And I started thinking to myself, I looked at some of the things that were on this website, $8,000 for this, $9,000 for this, ring for $20,000, earrings for $10,000, and just, I was like, wow, now this is nice here. this is really nice. But I said, if you buy that, do you really think that you're better than the next person who maybe shop at a different store or lower end store? And I said, sometimes we think that because we work for certain things that we're better than other people. And as I look back at this story, you can't buy class. Certain things you just can't buy, and certain things that you just have to understand. Just like the guy told him, he wasn't going to steal from you. He gave me the $15 to make sure that it got delivered. He's an honest guy. You're the one that's trying to lower him on $25 down to $15, and if you wouldn't accept that, you'd probably got him down to $10. I said, but that's what happens a lot of times in life. That's what happens a lot of times. We start thinking that we're better than everyone that's around us. And I understand there's certain people in certain situations in their life, and as I look at sometimes when I drive and I see certain situations, as I look out my window and I ask myself, that could easily be you if you don't continue doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm not making fun of that person who's on that, on the road or who's living. And I have to remind myself, I said, you've been given an opportunity. Don't mess it up. And that's a constant reminder. Don't mess it up. You've been given all these opportunities to do better and better and better. Don't get your nose all up in the sky and think, well, that's those people's problem. I'll never have those kind of problems. I'm above that. No, you're not. You're just, a few bad mistakes away from that situation. But I said, you have to be disciplined to stay with that situation and stay where you are. And to be honest with you, just sometimes I do get frustrated. I do get frustrated because I don't see myself growing as fast as necessary. And I want to make those quick rush to judgment kind of decisions for the podcast, a live stream. And I said, just slow down and said, sit back and, it'll happen. It just takes time. It just takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. But sometimes we don't see it that way. We want it now. Just recently I had my lunch, and my wife brought my lunch and my son lunch, and then she left. They went somewhere. And she said, oh, it's going to be in the microwave. And I was like, oh, okay. But I knew that when I woke up, all I had to do is push the button a few seconds and it's warmed up. Long time ago, if I needed lunch, we didn't have a microwave. I had to put it, maybe I had to eat it when she said, okay, we're leaving right now. I had to eat it before it's hot. Or I had to put it back in the oven and it takes a little bit longer to heat up. And I think that's what happens. We're so used to having things now, we don't want to wait. We don't want to show people the same things, the same class that we have for other people. But it's okay. And that's a hard thing. I realize with a lot of people, you can't buy class. You either, you have it or you don't. And as I listen to that story and I think about reflect on some of the places that we go, some of the hotels that we go, and some of the airlines and some of the things. And today we were just places we go in general. And today we were standing in line, my wife, my son, and I, we were standing in line, and this lady was helping us. And, we were just smiling, and it was a long line, smiling and just being happy and being joyful. We had to have our mask on. We had to get our temperature checked and whatnot. And we didn't make a big deal about it. We just laughed at it and just said, okay, just not laughing at the person, but just engaging in a conversation with the person. And then, next thing you know it, we're in and we're out. And I think sometimes we look at certain people, we're like, well, they're a certain race. They're this and they're this and that. And I'm going to put my nose up at that race. I'm better than that person. I'm better than this person. We're all living, breathing, and trying to make it. And I know some of us have hang-ups. We have a lot of hang-ups that, this person can't do anything for me. You'd be surprised the people who can do things for you. I know I just, like I said, with our Instagram account, we're reaching all different types of people. I had this one Hungarian podcast host reach out to me, and they said, hey, how are you doing over there? I said, I'm fine. I'm doing great. They go, what do you mean you're doing great? I said, yeah. They said, well, we see that in the United States, this and this and this and this is going on. I said, yeah, I know. I said, but we're hanging in there. We're doing the best that we can. And I said, thank you for, checking on us and everything. He said, no problem at all, man. I wish you guys the best, but could you give us a shout out or, just next time, give us a shout out. And I was like, what? A shout out? I said, his name is, he's from It's Bianca and Michael, and they're from Austria. And so they want to make sure that, help them out on their podcast and so they have an interesting podcast. And I'll try to leave the link up there and just try to check them out there. They, like he said, my English is not too good, but we have some really good content up there. So so it's interesting to hear different people, and like I said, it's hard to buy. It's hard to buy class. And I see a lot of people want to have all this respect and class and all this other stuff, but they treat people really bad. They treat people really bad, and they say certain things, and it's just, for me, it's hard for me to deal with those type of people. It's really hard for me to deal with those type of people. And as I look and I think about myself, I say, don't worry about what they're doing. Focus on you. Really focus on what you need to get done. Because a lot of times what happens is we stop focusing on ourselves, and we think that everybody's a problem. And usually, sometimes it's you. Sometimes the problem is you. Let's be honest. Sometimes the problem is you. You think you're too better, and you think that everything that's supposed to go your way. And so that's what's confusing me a lot of times. I see people, especially during this certain time of the, where certain people were having this pandemic, and they're telling people to do certain things with the covering of their mouths and doing with the mask and hand washing. And some people say, I'm above that. Some people says, no, I'm not above that. We're all in this together. And that's what happens a lot of times. We start thinking that there's a upper class, middle class, and lower class. And to be honest with you, the lower class, there's probably a class lower than that, and there's a middle class. So there's various classes that we have, but you have to make sure that whatever you are in life, treat people good. If somebody wants $20 to deliver a package, give them the $20. You don't have to sit there and negotiate and here I'll give you. I only have is 10, all this other stuff. I know myself sometimes when I go places, and someone says, "Hey, it's $250." And I said, well, I can't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I just think to myself, that's how it is when you go to your business and people say, I can't do that. Pay them and move on. I know sometimes you think, I'm getting ripped off. The person's ripping me off. They could be, they might be. But if you want their services, you got to pay for them. You got to pay for their services. It's just really simple, but sometimes we don't want to do that. We want to do things our own way. And that's what happens a lot of times. We end up as the bad people. So, well, hopefully you enjoyed our podcast. And someone asked me the other day, one of the questions, I noticed your podcast were like 17, 18 minutes. Can you make them an hour long? I was like, you know what? I would love to, and we're going to get to that point. I just got to make sure that here's the thing about when you stretch yourself like that. I know myself right now, I can do 15, 30 minutes of the podcast. I know I can do that, but I hear other podcasts are for an hour, 2 hours long, and I just have these, I lose interest. People lose interest after a certain amount of time. I know that you can stay focused for about 15, 20 minutes. I know for an hour, as much as I love to hear my voice and love to hear my guest voice, some people will tune out. I know I've been listening to a lot of different podcasts, but about after 38 minutes, I'm done. I'm done with their conversation, and there's nothing wrong with their conversation. I just have to move on to something else. I want to hear something else. And it's nothing wrong with that. That's just me. I'm just one small person. That's just my opinion about certain things. Now, your opinion may be a little bit different. You may can listen to me for an hour. That's why we have multiple podcasts up there. And like I said, we have that 24-hour one that goes and it just streams and it just goes and goes and goes. So there's ways that you can listen to our podcast, and we're going to stream it out tonight. It's going right now. It's on YouTube, the Parafair podcast, live stream, and it just goes. And so all the, podcasts that you're missing and whatnot, it's there. So if you want to listen to the older shows, new shows, it's all there. So I want to thank you again for dropping by and listening to our story and listening to our moral of the story. And, class you can't buy class. You kind of earn it. You got to earn it each day and with your honesty and your integrity. So thanks again for dropping by, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.